just a movie.
You see, Natalie, life's not a fairy tale. Girls like us don't get that.
I'm Jack.
Natalie.
Give me the purse!
Why does this shit always happen to me? Where am I?
You're in the emergency room.
This isn't an emergency room. This is a Williams-Sonoma.
911, what's your emergency?
Someone's broken into my apartment and they've taken everything and replaced it all with much nicer stuff.
So your emergency is that your apartment is too big and you have every shoe you could ever want.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I...
Yeah.
You're quite beguiling, aren't you? Are you feeling what I'm feeling?
No! Oh, my God. I think I'm trapped in a... My life's become a mother... romantic comedy! And it's PG-13!
Good morning, beautiful. Last night was amazing. Natalie,
A chubby girl named Natalie rapturously watches a romantic love movie and dreams of meeting her prince in the future too. But the mother advises her to forget about it, because people like them are not destined to be happy. Life is not a fairy tale, so you have to get used to the harsh realities from childhood. In the mother's opinion, if anyone would ever marry her daughter, then only for the sake of a visa. 25 years have passed. At 8 o'clock in the morning, Natalie wakes up for work, and the most ordinary weekday begins for her. She finds another love note on her door, meant for her handsome neighbor named Donnie. Apparently the admirer just got the wrong door. Natalie works in an architectural firm. The colleagues take her advantage kindness and chase around on all sorts of petty errands. When she saw their new boss, Natalie was surprised, because he was the most handsome man she had ever met. Natalie wanted to present her ideas at the meeting, but then she changed her mind because her bosses usually ignore her anyway. However, Natalie's colleague Josh instilled confidence in her and convinced to try to do so. The handsome man named Blake mistook her for a secretary and asked to fetch coffee. Natalie was too indecisive to object. Later, she shared her worries with Josh. She worries that she is invisible to successful guys like Blake. Josh believes that all of Natalie's problems come from her lack of self-confidence. Later, Natalie rebukes Whitney, her colleague, for constantly watching love melodramas. Natalie thinks it's a useless exercise, because things are different in real life anyway. Whitney does not share this opinion. There's enough negativity in life as it is, so sometimes it is useful to be distracted. Natalie spent the rest of the day arguing her position, proving to Whitney that life is very different from what they see in romantic comedies. Even in the restroom, Whitney couldn't hide from her. When Josh heard the girls arguing, he decided to intervene. As it turned out, he too liked movies with happy endings. Natalie called them wimps. The guy invited Natalie to karaoke, but she refused. Later, Whitney advises the friend to finally pay attention to Josh, who had been asking her on a date for a long time. But Natalie is sure that he likes her just as a friend. On the subway, some guy started flirting with Natalie. When they got off at the station, talked nicely. She didn't expect him to attack her and try to take the purse. Natalie had no intention of parting with her property and fought the mugger off, but she hit her head as she ran away. Waking up in the hospital, Natalie saw a gorgeous bouquet of flowers. And in general, everything looked like a fairy tale. The doctor, who turned out to be a real hottie, came into the room. Natalie was puzzled when he started to compliment her. Realizing something was wrong, Natalie told the doctor to stay away from her. He just smiled charmingly and provided her with new clothes that looked like something out of a romantic melodrama. When she left the hospital, Natalie left a voicemail for Josh in a panic. All the men around her were complimenting her, and the atmosphere outside was very unfamiliar. Suddenly, Natalie was nearly run over by Blake in his luxurious car. He started apologizing to the woman and looking at her with love. The man acted like a real gentleman. Natalie wonders why the street smells like lavender. When Blake offered her a ride, she decided to take it. As she got out of the car, Natalie realized that things didn't look the same. Thinking she was going crazy, Natalie wanted to leave as soon as possible. But before she did, Blake gave her a flower, writing the digits of his phone number on the petals. There are many millions of options, but Blake assured Natalie that the heart would tell her the only right one. In the place of her shabby apartment, Natalie found a luxurious house. At first she thought she had the wrong door, but she quickly realized that this was not the case. At home, everything looked like some kind of positive fairy tale. Natalie was sure it was the colleagues playing a practical joke on her. She saw no other explanation for what was happening. Natalie called 911, saying someone had made a gorgeous renovation to her house. Natalie was speechless when she saw the huge walk-in closet with all the different dresses and shoes. The operator hung up. Natalie was frightened to find her neighbor Donnie, who is now her personal assistant, in one of the rooms. He informed her that she had a presentation scheduled for tonight. Natalie didn't understand what was going on, but she went to work anyway. All the colleagues were very nice to her, and the office looked much more presentable. But unlike the rest of her colleagues, Whitney was hostile toward Natalie. This is exactly what happens in typical romantic melodramas, where two women in a team must necessarily hate each other. Josh was the only one who hadn't changed. Natalie tried to explain the situation to him, saying that she had entered a parallel universe. The guy had no idea what she was talking about. To reassure the friend, Josh offered to take her for a walk and promised to help. Suddenly they saw a girl who was choking. Josh saved her life, and the beautiful girl named Isabella said she was indebted to him by offering a drink. Natalie realized that Josh was another love story hero, a typical simple guy. Walking down the street, Natalie tried to calm down. At this point, couples in love around her began to dance. In a panic, Natalie returned to the subway, hoping that if she recreated the events of yesterday, she would be able to leave this strange, sugary world. However, the guard refused to give her the security camera footage. Everything that was going on around her was abnormal. Natalie was annoyed by the positivity reigning everywhere. Wanting at all costs to return to her dull gray life, Natalie wanted to step towards the approaching train, but she was stopped by an officer and arrested for failure to pay the fare. She was allowed to make one call. She remembered the petals Blake had given her. When she threw them on the floor, they magically folded into the phone number. Blake happily solved all her problems. Natalie told him that she had entered an alternate reality where everyone treated her like a queen. But it soon dawned on Natalie that in order to get home, she would have to see this romantic plot through to the end. To do this, you need someone to fall in love with her, for example Blake. Natalie decided to start acting and agreed to have dinner with Blake tonight. At home, she wondered what to wear, so she turned to Donnie for help, who was now like a friend to her. In the evening, Natalie arrived at the restaurant in Blake's limousine. She looked like a movie star, and Blake talked in quotes from sugary love movies. They had dinner at the upscale restaurant, and then Blake suggested a walk. He miraculously had the keys to the ice cream parlor, and they snuck in the middle of the night. Blake constantly confessed to Natalie his tender feelings. Noticing the sirens of police cars, they fled. As Blake walked his sweetheart home, it suddenly started to rain. At that moment they kissed, and Natalie was in the mood to continue. In the morning, Blake told her it was the best night of his life, though the woman remembered absolutely nothing. And so it went on and on. Natalie realized that she wasn't going to get any pleasure out of it. When Blake confessed his love for her, she did not, contrary to expectations, return to her reality. At the office, Whitney continued to feud with her. The boss reminded that we are 3 days away from the final presentation. Here Natalie is the chief architect and doesn't understand what goes into her new duties. Nights she tried to catch up on her work so she wouldn't let the colleagues down. One day Josh visited her, who brought food. They chatted nicely. At one point Blake joined them. Josh felt like a third wheel and hurried away. Natalie began to doubt that Blake was the one for her. The next day, the couple met Josh and his girlfriend at a cafe. It turned out that Blake and Isabella already knew each other. The girl offered to throw a party at her castle. They went there in private helicopters. The guests were served rare delicacies and champagne. Natalie kept her eyes on Josh, who later confessed that he had been in love with her for years. But since she never went on a date with him, he decided that they should just remain friends. Josh and Isabella surprised their guests and announced that they were getting married. Natalie was shocked by the news, realizing that it wasn't Isabella, but she was supposed to be Josh's wife. On Donnie's advice, Natalie decided to stop the wedding at all costs. In the evening the guests partied at karaoke. After getting drunk, Natalie decided to sing in front of the public, even though she hated doing it. But according to the laws of the genre, a waitress tripped over the wire, and the music stopped. Then the guests started singing along to Natalie, just like in some musical. The rivals were not going to yield to each other in the struggle for Josh's heart. In the evening, Natalie, taking a walk with the beloved, told him that he shouldn't marry a girl he barely knows. Kissing Natalie on the cheek, Josh told her that perhaps in another life they could be together. In the morning, Blake said her that his girlfriend would not work, so she had to forget her ambitions and stay home. Natalie was outraged because she loved her job. She also realized that Blake was a terrible person and decided to leave him. Donnie showed up and reminded her that the wedding was in 20 minutes. But Natalie does not care now, because her beloved man is marrying another. Donnie, however, says that this is her last chance to win Josh back, which she has no right to miss. Determined, Natalie burst into the church where the wedding was taking place. She announced in front of all the guests that she intended to stop the ceremony. But the bride was sure that someone like Natalie is no rival for her. Against all odds, Natalie wanted to tell Josh that she loved him, but at the last moment she realized that what really loved was herself. That was the most important thing, to love herself, not someone else. It was with this that Natalie's low self-esteem was associated all these years. After changing her mind about stopping the wedding, Natalie wished the newlyweds good luck and left. Now she was determined to change completely and achieve harmony. However, while driving the car, Natalie crashed into a pole. She woke up in an ordinary chamber, having learned that she had been brought here after the robbery. The woman had slept for 18 hours, but now she could go home. The worst was over. Natalie was over the moon because she was finally home. Now the shabby apartment seemed like the best place she'd ever lived in. Natalie hugged Donnie, who was back to being as rude as before. Now Natalie doesn't let the colleagues push her around by showing her what she's really worth. The most important thing for her was that she and Whitney were friends again. It was time for the presentation. Blake asked Natalie to make him coffee, but she said it wasn't her job and presented the new project. Blake found her ideas promising. But Natalie had one more unfinished business. She approached Josh, and they confessed their feelings to each other, kissed, and agreed to finally go on a date for the weekend. From now on, no obstacle would stop Natalie from pursuing her dreams and personal happiness. Whitney was very proud of the friend who was able to overcome